Listen up, lads. This is a Daily Crumper, and today we're going to be talking about the dead-eyed boys of the Great War. The lads that'll knock your teeth out if yous gets out of line. The right and proper orcs that'll crump the biggest gits yous ever seens. We're talking about the Nobz. We's going to talk about what the Nobz are, including what kind of gear they bring. Tell you about a couple orky armies that you might want to bring them in. Throw a couple list ideas at you, and then I'll show you how to play them on a tabletop. So let's get right into it. So, who are the Nobz? Well, we'll start with the stat line. See, they got a 6-inch movement, toughness 5, 4 ups save, 2 wounds, 7 up leadership, and 1 OC. So you can tell right off the bat, they're a bit tougher than the typical lads that you run. Seeing as they've got 2 wounds and they've got a 4-up armor save. Most of the time us orcs are stuck with a 5-up or sometimes even a 6-up. So having a 4-up armor save means you're immediately much harder to shift from the table. You get 5 models in a squad for 105 points, or you can upgrade to a 10-man squad for 210 points. Each model is equipped with a slugger and a big chopper, but as you'll see, we'll probably want to throw those away for something else. Their ability is the Boss's Lance. Says while a war boss model's leading this unit, each time an attack targets this unit, if the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. So this is like your typical termy ability from the Beakies, if you're familiar with them. Just means that typically any high strength weapon that's pretty good at dealing with our tough 5 boys here means it's a little bit harder to wound them and therefore makes us that much tougher to kill. But you have to have a war boss attached to your Nobz in order to benefit from it, which is an important distinction. As we go to our war gear options, it says that any number of models can have their big chopper replaced with a power claw. Any number of models can have their slugger and big chopper replaced with a combi weapon and a close combat weapon. And for every 5 models in the unit can be equipped with 1 ammo runt. And if we look at the war gear abilities for said ammo runt, it says once per battle, for each ammo runt this unit has, when this unit selected to shoot, can use this ability. If it does, till the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have lethal hits. So if you have a 10-man squad, you can have 2 ammo runts, so you can do it twice. So that's nice. So what are you going to want to equip these lads with? Well, seeing as how any number of these models can have a power claw instead of their big choppers, I'd say stick with that option. Because if we look at our melee weapons here, we got the big chopper, gets you 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 7, AP 1, 2 damage. Your close combat weapon, if you wanted to go with the combi weapon instead, is 3 attacks hitting on 3s again at strength 5, AP 0, damage 1. Or you go with your power claw, which is 3 attacks hitting on 4s, so it hits worse, but it is strength 9, AP 2, and 2 damage. For me, I would take the power claw all day. The extra AP and the extra strength is really what brings it up over the edge here. Yes, you do hit worse, but as we know from our war bosses, they give you +1 to hit if they are leading your unit, meaning you'd be back to hitting on 3s, which will help offset that penalty. That's mainly because the AP 1 from the big choppers, it just doesn't really cut it nowadays. Most things have 2-up saves, and or have access to things like Armor of Contempt to reduce your incoming APs. So typically I find if I run the big choppers, I'm not doing nearly as much damage as I thought I would. So you typically want to go with the power claws. And if you're looking at the combi weapons, like they seem fancy, so what do you got? You got 24-inch range, 1 shot, hitting on a 5 because you're an orc, strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. But it's got all these fancy keywords though. It's got anti-infantry 4+, it's got devastating wounds, it's got rapid fire 1. So it means that if you roll a bunch of 4+ to wound versus infantry, you can do a bunch of devastating wounds, which is nice, but the shot count is just not there, lads. Getting 2 shots max at 12-inch range, and you're hitting on 5s. Even if you're running 10 of these lads with combi weapons, you're looking at 20 shots, you're gonna hit like 7 times, and if you're shooting infantry, that means you'll do 3, maybe 4 mortal wounds. But then that's all you're doing. It's not great. I'd much rather take the melee weapons and just get in and crump them as quick as you can. And in terms of whether you want to run them in large or small squads, I typically go with the 10-man squads. It just helps maximize the war boss benefit, because your war boss is the real big heavy hitter in the squad anyways, so being able to protect him as long as you can with just as many bodies as you can pile around him is typically going to be the way to go. So, what detachments are good for the Nobz? First up, we got the Bully Boys. The Nobz are one of the few units that can actually benefit from the Bully Boys detachment ability, and if you're not familiar with it, the ability is the boss is watching. And what it does is it effectively allows you to call a second war during the game. However, the war benefits, that being the 5-up invuln, save, the +1 strength, +1 attack in melee, and your advance and charge is only going to be affected by things with the war boss, Nobz, and Mega Nobz keyword. Which, if you flip through our book, you'll notice that that's only going to be war boss characters, being the regular war boss or the war boss in mega armor, or the beast boss, or even big man Gazzy has it as well. Mega Nob keyworded units are only going to be the Mega Nobz, and Nob keyworded units is also only going to be the Nobz. Because unfortunately, our Flash Gitz, our Breaker Boys, even our new Tank Busters, who are all Nob stat lines with their 4-up save and their 2 wounds, they do not have the Nob keyword, which means they would not benefit from the boss's watching. Meaning that again, Nobz are going to be one of the few units that can benefit from this in the first place. Bully Boys has some good enhancements for your leader Gitz, like your war bosses. Both Ed Stomper and Big Gob are pretty good to throw on them. And as we know, you're going to want to keep your war bosses with your Nob squad so they can benefit from that -1 to wound. So it's all the more reason to bring them there. Then you have great stratagem support, such as Arm to the Teeth, which gives you reroll hits during the war, which is especially good on them Nobz, because they normally are going to be hitting on 3s with their power claws due to the war bosses plus they give them. And Too Arrogant to Die is going to give you lads a 3-up fight on death during the war as well, also only for 1 CP. So both of those stratagems are pretty good to use on your Nob squads if you're bringing the Bully Boys. The other detachment that I would highly suggest bringing them in is good old classic War Horde. As you all know, War Horde gives us sustain hits 1 on all of our melee weapons all game long. And sustain hits 1 on a mass volume of attacks such as Nobs with Power Claws definitely ups their damage output, because the more dice you're throwing means the more likelihood of 6s to be rolled, which would then in case proc the sustain hits. As we know, each Power Claw Nob is throwing out 3 attacks base, or if they're on the wall, they get that 4th attack. And if you're rocking a 10-man squad of these lads, you're throwing out 30 attacks or 40 Power Claw swings during the war. It's a lot of claws, they're going to crump a lot of Gitz. Now War Horde has some pretty good stratagems as well. They've got Unbridled Carnage, which allows you to proc your sustained hits on 5s instead of just 6s. And Orcs is Never Beaten is another fight on death stratagem, but it's 2 CP. However, you don't have to roll for it. You just automatically get to fight on death, which is really nice, as we'll find out later. And the Nobz and War Horde definitely combo with Gaz to bring them even more damage, because as we know with Gazgul, if you're on the wall, then Bakari, the little grot running around with him, gives out that big 12-inch bubble of lethal hits in addition to the sustained hits that the Nob's already going to have from the detachment. So I definitely consider running either of these if you're bringing your Nobs to the table. So, first list I'm going to go over is the War Horde list. Now this is a 2,000 point list on a nose. Here's what we're bringing. We got Gazgul himself, again to be able to hand out that Lethal's aura as well as being pretty dead-odd and great at crumping himself. We brought Boss Snickrot for the Infiltrate to help block opposing infiltrators. We got a beast boss with Edwopper's Kill Chopper as an enhancement, and 2 war bosses, one of which carries Follow Me Lads. For them enhancements, Edwopper's Kill Chopper will give that beast boss devastating wounds on his melee attacks, which is nice because the beast boss typically only gets devastating wounds if he's on the charge, but Headwhoppers will allow him to have it all the time, no matter whether he's charging or if he's being charged by some opposing Gitz. And Follow Me Lads on the war boss is going to give his unit plus 2 inches to their move characteristic, which means they're going to be moving even speedier when we need them to get in there and crump them good. As for the non-bosses, we've got a 10-man squad of boys to help stick your back home objective, 10 beast snagger boys to go along with that beast boss, 1 squad of grots to get us some CPs, 2 mega Nobz to party around with Gazzy, 2 10 packs of Nobz, all rocking their sluggers and power claws for maximum gate crumping, 2 5 packs of storm boys for some secondary game, 2 6 packs of tank busters, because we need to be able to crack open those cans to be able to get at the Gitz inside, and 4 trucks to cart all of our boys around. This list is going to be very mobile with all the trucks and have very small footprints, that way you can hide behind all them ruins to help stage up your boys in order to get the crumping on once you call that war. Next list is the bully boys. Now this army is also going to be 2,000 points on the nose. And this is what we got. So we've got 3 war bosses, the maximum amount you can take, and we've got 2 mega armored war bosses. One takes the teleporter enhancement, which allows his unit to be able to deep strike, and the other one takes Big Gob, which is an enhancement that allows your unit to force battle shock tests at a -1 at opposing Gitz in melee. To go along with them, we got a big 20 pack of boys for one of the war bosses to go with, because remember, the only units that benefit from the bully boys detachments are things with Nobz, mega Nobz, or war boss keywords. So even though the boys don't have the keyword, if you put a boss with them, it will give them that war boss keyword, allowing them to benefit from that second war, which is very important. We got 1 squad of grots, again for CPs. We got 2 3 packs of mega Nobz to keep them nice and cheap at that 105 points. Each of those is going to go with their respective war boss and mega armor, and keeping them at a small 3-man plus a boss for 4 models total means you can fit them in a truck if you want to. Again, we're running 2 10 packs of Nobz with the power claws for plenty of beatings, 2 5 pack storm boys for secondaries, 2 6 pack tank busters for blowing up vehicles. Then we've got a big old battle wagon to carry all the boys, and 2 trucks to keep them Nobz in. With a list like this, you're going to play it similarly to the other one, where your main damage dealing units, those being your mega Nobz, your Nob units, and your tank busters, even a boy squad, they're all going to be either in deep strikes or reserves, or they're going to be inside of a can as the trucks or the battle wagon. That being because if you keep your lads on the ground, they are going to get shot, they're not going to be as fast, and they will die before they get to where you want to get them. So it's why bringing your trucks is very important, being able to run a successful war at your local game stores. So here's whizzes on the tabletop. As you can see, I've got my war horde list laid out on the table right now, and I'm facing off against the spiky Gitz of the Chaos Space Marines. I'm running my war horde, and these are the Renegade Raiders. This is mission F from the new chapter approved mission deck, which is hidden supplies and hammer and anvil deployment. You can see with how I've deployed everything that all me boys are hiding as much as they can, because I don't want them getting shot off the board turn 1, especially when these spiky Gitz brought a couple of them forge fiends, which shoot pretty damn good. So, back is, I've got me grots on me back home field objective to give me some CPs. I've got these boys starting outside of their truck in order to sticky my home objective, and then afterwards they can hop back up into their truck, which inside of it right now is going to be a squad of tank busters. On my turn 1, these tank busters are going to hop out and probably get somewhere in about this area to be able to stage up nice and proper, be able to hop out on turns 2 or maybe even turn 3 and shoot whatever is in the midboard here with their rockets. It's what we call truck hopping, because once those tank busters out of the truck, boys can hop in, and then this truck can hop all the way up to his or his-ish, and again be another staging piece with those boys to be able to get ready to hop out and do their damage, charge in, crump some Gitz, do whatever they're going to do. Maybe they even just got to do a secondary objective, do an action somewhere, who knows, but having them being in this truck means they're that much faster and allows them to get where they need to go. We've got 2 trucks, one right here on this right flank, one right here on this left flank, both with 10 Nobz and a war boss attached. Plan's probably going to be that this truck is going to stage up in this ruin here, and this truck here is going to either get its Gitz out to sit right here to be staged, or if it gets a decent enough advance, might be able to come up here and help out with Snickrot up here in the midboard. Speaking of Snickrot, he is infiltrated like he usually does. Reason we stuck him right here is so that way he can be in the mid-board, ready to potentially do a secondary that we pull, or just to be there and ready as a counter-charge threat. I positioned him in such a way that if my opponent goes first and says he wants to charge me with this 10-man group of possessed, Snickrot is just barely an inch off of this wall here, which means if the possessed want to engage him in melee, they're going to have to charge outside of the ruin and end up somewhere around his in order to punch me boss, which Snickrot would most likely die at that point, which is quite a shame, but then these possessed boys will end up right out here in the open for me and my lads to come punch them up real good, which is most likely what we do with this big squad of Nobz with the war boss in this truck. We got Gazzy in the middle, because we want Makari to give out as big of a bubble as possible. Gazzy's probably going to end up somewhere in the mid-board, punching as many boys as he can, as he usually does. We got 5 storm boys right next to him, again to be able to hop up there 12 inches turn 1, potentially do a secondary objective, or maybe advance and charge into some other small scouting unit that my opponent might want to throw up into the mid-board, such as these bikers. We got the beast boss in his wagon right here, ready to be able to move up, perhaps somewhere here, maybe also stage up in this ruin with these Nobz. This is going to be our big anti-tank punch threat. So they're going to want to go after those Forge Fiends if they can make it all the way down the board. Other than that, we've got our 5 Storm Boys in Deep Strike. We've got another squad of Tank Busters in reserve to come in and shoot something later on in the game. And of course, we got all of our lads in our transports. As for the spiky Gitz, they've got some puny Umis holding down their backfield. 2 of them shooty Forge Fiend thingies sitting in the middle, ready to be able to advance and shoot wherever they want with their Renegade Raiders abilities. They've got 3 big chunky bricks of them possessed, which are proper dead hard to get through, but I believe with our list and Warhorde, should be able to punch them up real good. They've got a cheapo 3 biker squad here to be able to do whatever it is they're gonna do. They've got a typical Rhino sitting here full of their big git Mr. Bile, with 10 of these chosen lads, which are also going to be 3 wound infantry. And the other Rhino over on the right flank here is going to have one of them Chaos Lord Light lads, some of their basic spiky boys, and some of them new scary Night Lords, Legionnaires, the ones that prevent you from using stratagems and stuff. The Nemesis boys, I think they're called. So, what is going to be the game plan here? My opponent's got a lot of big melee units that are probably going to want to come crop me good as soon as they possibly can. And the Renegade Raiders, they can advance and charge all day long. So you got to be worried about that, because they move pretty zogging quick. So, I will fast forward a turn or two, see how the board's changed, and tell you how I would use these units in conjunction to be able to crump these Gits and get them off the table. Alright, welcome back. So, this is the state of things as it is now. So what happened is we got turn 1, so what we did is we pulled Area Denial and Cleanse, so we had our Storm Boys fly up in the middle, do their cleanse, as well as get us Area Denial, and we had this truck pull up right onto the tippy top of this objective here, and got us our second cleanse. Snickrot stuck where he was, and everybody else just kind of shifted up, moved around. We had our trucks stage up in a way where they'd be avoiding major lines of sight, so that way the opposing Gits couldn't shoot us with their big old scary forges. This truck over here hiding quite nicely. That was about it. On the Spiky Boys' turn, they did a similar thing, moved up all their lads, staged up with these possessed, moved their Forge Fiends in a way. This one moved up and got a bead on our Storm Boys, took them out unfortunately, but that's okay, they got us their points. This truck full of lads rolled up on this side. We had some bikers come up and take the center board here. And as you'll see, unfortunately, Snickrot has died. Rest in peace to our sneaky Git. But, technically, this works very well in our favor, as we discussed previously, these possessed are now out in the open and ready to be chopped up by our lads. So, going into our turn 2, there's a few different options we can do here. So on this flank, we're gonna have this big old war boss squad with all of his Nobz. Grab them real quick. We can have these lads hop out this way, move on up towards these possessed, charge them up, and chop them up good. At this point, we'd probably call war to be able to do as much damage as we can. And the reason being is that I've crunched the numbers with me mech boys back at the shop. And this big 10-pack of Nobz with a war boss going into a 10-pack of possessed, which are toughness 6 and 3 wounds apiece with a 3-up armor save and a 5-up invulnerable. If you have this big Gitz squad go in with no buffs at all, no war, no strategism support whatsoever, just having their sustained hits off of Warhorde, you should crump about 5 to 6 of the possessed. If you choose to not war but use Unbridled Carnage for the crit 5s on sustained hits, you should kill about 7 or 8 of them, versus if you war with the Gitz and don't use Unbridled Carnage, you should kill exactly 10. But again, it's a dice game, things can be swingy a bit. So if you chose to war and then use Unbridled Carnage on top of that, you should pick up the squad no problem, and that would be our best case scenario. Now what you're thinking is, well, Crumper, we got another 10-pack of Gitz right back here, and would they not come up and chop us right up on the Spiky Boys' turn? Well, yes, most likely, but that is where Orcs is Never Beaten comes in, our 2 CP stratagem to automatically fight on death. So let's play the scenario here real quick. Say the lads chopped up the possessed no problem, and this is where they end up. This is them possessed boys where they'd end up if they made a charge. And when them possessed boys get a swing, now their ability is that they can give themselves devastating wounds and melee once per game, which they probably use, and I wouldn't blame them for it. But the mech boy numbers crunch out that this unit of Nobz plus their war boss would unfortunately die pretty easily. But that's why we got Orcs is Never Beaten. So you'd spend your 2 CP, which we've got plenty at this point in the game, fight on death, and then even though you're losing this big Nobz squad, again with the war benefits, you would kill probably 9 if not the entire possessed squad when they come in to fight your boys. And that's pretty huge, because that means you not only took out one squad, but you're also taking the second one out at the same time. And that is where it's tricky as your opponent to try to deal with these big Nobz squads. Because not only are they deceptively hard to take out, because if you have your 5-up invuln from your war, you have your -1 to wound if you're above their toughness of 5, you have 10 dudes with 4 of armor saves and 2 wounds apiece, plus your war boss who has 5 or 6 wounds himself, it can be hard to chew through. And if you're on melee, the Orc player can spend that 2 CP to fight on death, which means your melee units that you want to try to use to kill the Orcs are probably going to get killed themselves on the smackback. So it makes these big Nob packs in Warhorde very hard to deal with. And as you can see, we more or less doubled the amount of points that it costs to bring the Nobz by killing 20 possessed, which is a huge chunk of the opponent's army that's just gone now. So that's definitely one way I'd use these lads. Now over here on this flank, it gets a little bit trickier, because the Spiky Gitz player has decided to not get his lads out of his Rhino, and keep them in there just to be able to contest this objective, because currently, Truck's got 2 OC, Rhino's got 2 OC, nobody has it. So if I were to try to take this down, you'd have to try to get lucky with some things, but I'd probably try to go for it anyways. So what I'd have to do is I'd have to bring my tank busters in somewhere around here, because we are more than 9 inches away from this Forge Fiend, shoot this Rhino, hope that we can pop it with our rockets, or if not, we'd get these Nobz out with the war boss somewhere around this table right here. Let me simulate that real quick. Alright, so our Nobz would end up here, and we'd have our tank busters over here. So between their rocket shooting, if they pop their pulsar rocket for the extra strength and AP, should be able to take a good chunk of this Rhino down, but say they leave it on a couple wounds or so, then you'd probably have to throw a cheeky grenade from the Nobz for a CP, in addition to shoot with their sluggers using lethal hits off of their ammo runs they've got, to hopefully be able to take this transport out. Because then, the opposing Git would have to pile all of his lads out somewhere around here's-ish, then you could charge them with the Nobz and crump them in melee, taking out another big piece of the opponent army. And as for the rest of the lads, you could push them forward on your war turn, try to take out some bikers, maybe get a really big charge across the board into the possessed back here maybe. There's all kinds of things you can do, but mainly I wanted to focus on what these big Nob bricks could do, because they are expensive, 210 for 10 knobs, plus 70 or 80-ish points for a war boss, even more if you're putting on an enhancement. So it's a lot of points dedicated to these big melee bricks, but as a result, these Gitz are pretty hard to deal with, especially if you're on the opposing side, alright? So that was just a few tips as to how I would run Nobz on the tabletop. This has been the Daily Crumper. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that other weird Gitz stuff. And have a good one.